I feel I've not done a response to comments for a while, so here's one. Wilster21 says, "Who is this lad?" We're talking about Putin's tantrum and the threats to Britain, but a number of videos which I've done with Caelan Robertson, who you can find on the Culture Report on YouTube, and he's also doing reports with other people like, oh, what's the name of the fella? It'll come to me in a few minutes. But the who is this lad? I like him. Lost Generation, my arse. Impressed that you know the Russian nuclear doctrine and protocols. Well, I know some of them, but only the stuff which has already been sort of spearheaded and talked about. Yeah, that's right. Caelan is talking to Jake Bro, I think on Byline TV or the Byline channel anyway. But as for the nuclear doctrine and protocols, you say it's not well known information. Old man, ex forces, perhaps. No. The Sergey Karaganov in Kommersant yesterday or the day before was talking about calling for a change in the nuclear protocols so that they could respond to any mass strikes on Russian territory. And so at the moment, the threats of Putin fall outside the scope of the nuclear protocol. That could change, and apparently that doctrine, which is not sufficient to allow for Putin's threats to become reality as such, that doctrine will be changed. I don't know how soon, but it is being thought about at the moment, and the appeals are being made in the Russian newspapers. So permission to allow Ukraine to fire missiles into mainland Russia would not necessarily trigger a nuclear response, according to the nuclear protocols that are in place at the moment in Russia. So Putin's threats are without foundation in Russian law, and Russian law is important. It's not just one person who presses the button in the Russian nuclear protocol system. Number one. Number two, the Putin and the Putinistas, the Kremlin and the propagandists, some of whom are on here, be in no doubt. I know, I see them. Very good English, by the way. You should be commended. Or maybe we should just commend the quality of Google Translator. But the ruse which is being put out is that in order to fire some of these missiles, Ukraine would need to be using Western satellite surveillance. Not necessarily. The pinpoint. It would be perfectly possible to pinpoint the source of a missile strike within moments of it being fired. If a missile was fired at Ukraine, it would be possible to ping a missile back to the same location, and that wouldn't require necessarily British or US satellite analysis. It would simply require access to fairly common knowledge. It might require access to satellite information, but it isn't something that would require detailed at that point knowledge and complexity. Somebody could be trained to do that, and I'm sure that has been done. So Putin's finger pointing that this is something that would have to be controlled by the US or the UK is simply untrue. In the same way, we could easily say, "Oh, you've taken you've taken on North Korean and Iranian missiles, they must be controlled by by North Korea or by Iran. Not true. Not true. Russia has the capacity to control these things itself, and a missile which is in the hands of one particular nation should be used by that nation. If you give something to somebody, or if you sell something to somebody, or you give somebody something with terms, it's up to them how they use it. Frankly, that's what a gift is, and or that's what a sale is. And this idea that we are in control of the final destination is an absurd piece of chop logic. It doesn't work. The aggressor here is Russia. Russia invaded Crimea in 2014. Russia invaded Ukraine and attacked Kyiv. And it is nonsensical that Putin is posturing with these elliptical threats. But as I say, things are changing. Things could change, and there is some urgency to move at this point. But I am interested in Wilster's comment, and thank you very much for comments. I appreciate all the comments. I try to love heart all the comments to indicate that I appreciate your effort in adding a comment to my YouTube site. Please keep them coming, even if I don't agree with them. Most of them I would give a thumbs up, but mostly for effort rather than content. If the content is something that requires comment, I will add comment. But I'm not going to add the same comment to 200 messages that require that particular comment. I will address the comments more generally in further YouTube posts, or indeed more specifically in a post like this when I draw on one particular or two or three particular comments that have struck me as interesting. I hope that's okay, and I hope that's an explanation. Some people criticise me for love-hearting all of the comments. It really is it's the only way to indicate that I've seen them, and YouTube doesn't provide enough resources for that. And if I if I don't acknowledge them, then they sort of fester, and we don't want festering comments. Really, it's like an open wound. We might all be on the NHS.